Okay, today we're diving into a white paper with a really bold claim that a major pattern you see in ancient texts isn't some coincidence, but is actually a predictable result of our solar system's own math.
So, right off the bat, you're hit with this puzzle. You've got three huge historical figures, and the paper claims they all follow the exact same pattern: born on a Friday, and then commissioned for their life's work at exactly 30 years old on a Sunday. I mean, what are the odds? Is that just random, or is there a system behind it?
And that question brings us to the absolute core of this paper's argument. The author says, no, it's not random. They claim there's a mathematical engine, a kind of clockwork that causes this exact shift to happen every single time over a 30-year period. Now, this whole theory is built on one single, incredibly precise number, the true solar year. That's the actual time it takes for Earth to go around the sun. We're not talking about a simple calendar year. This is the real gear ratio for the entire solar system.
Okay, so let's walk through the math. The paper takes that super precise year and multiplies it by 30, what it calls a maturation span. And when you do that, you get a very specific number of days: 10,957.26569.
Now, when we're trying to figure out the day of the week, that little fraction of a day doesn't really matter. We just care about the whole number of days that have passed. So the number we're really focusing on here is 10,957.
All right, and this next step is where the whole Mod 7 engine gets its name. We take those 10,957 days and we divide them by 7 for the 7 days of the week. This tells us how many full weeks went by, but more importantly, it leaves us with a remainder. And there it is. The remainder is always 2. It's not a guess. It's not an approximation. It's a mathematical constant. Any 30-year span, when you measure it this precisely, always has 2 days left over. This is what the paper calls the +2 shift.
So here's the bottom line. The pure orbital math of our solar system forces the weekday to jump forward by exactly 2 days over a 30-year span. It's like a guaranteed transition from a Friday installation to a Sunday activation. If you're born on a Friday, your 30th anniversary will, mathematically, land on a Sunday. So you might be thinking, okay, that's a neat trick, right? Well, the paper says no. This isn't just a one-off thing. It then lays out a case to prove that this +2 shift is a fundamental, locked-in feature of the timeline. And this is the big question, isn't it? Is this just some clever math someone found, or is it actually pointing to something much, much bigger? To try and answer that, the author presents multiple, totally independent ways to check the work. To prove this isn't a fluke, the paper runs the numbers 3 different ways. It calculates forward from a Friday, it calculates backward from a Sunday, and then there's this wild one, using a time-dilated count of over 4 billion days. And you know what? All 3 methods crash into the exact same Friday to Sunday result. Now, that third method is where things get really abstract. It uses an analogy from physics, right? Time dilation near a black hole, to basically stress test the math. It scales things up so 1 day equals 1,000 years, creating this astronomical number. But even on that massive scale, the Mod 7 math still works. It still lands right back on a Friday. But believe it or not, the claims don't stop with just the day of the week. The paper says this mathematical engine does something else, something even more surprising. It apparently preserves a very specific calendar date across thousands of years. So the next big bombshell is this. The author claims the same orbital clockwork doesn't just shift the day of the week. It also locks in the specific calendar date of September 11th with what they call zero drift, perfect stability. And to try and prove this, the paper presents this massive 4,000-year stability test. It points to 2 major events, Adam's fall and Christ's baptism, and claims they both happened on the exact same weekday and the exact same calendar date, Sunday, September 11th, even though they're separated by 4 millennia.
So the total number of days between these 2 alleged anchor points is very precise: 1,460,970 days. So what happens when we run that massive number through our Mod 7 engine? We divide it by 7, and what do we get for a remainder? 0. A perfect, clean division. Nothing left over.
And that 0 remainder is everything. It means that over 4,000 years, the weekday didn't drift by a single day. A Sunday back then is still a Sunday now. The paper calls this perfect lock between the date and the day of the week an architect's timestamp. Okay, so what are we supposed to make of all this? The paper is basically arguing that these numbers aren't coincidences. They're evidence of a deliberate, clockwork-like design that's actually embedded inside the timeline itself.
Now, the author is super careful to draw a line in the sand here. They argue this is not prediction, guessing the future. They call it reconstruction, auditing the past using fixed mathematical rules that literally anyone can go and check for themselves. And that's really a key part of their whole argument. These claims aren't being presented as something you need to have faith in. They're presented as a series of math problems that can be audited. The entire focus is on whether the arithmetic is sound.
And it all comes down to this direct challenge from the author. The whole argument is built on one simple idea, that the numbers are verifiable, and they don't depend on what you believe. The case lives or dies on the math, and the math alone. So, we're left with this really provocative question. What happens when you take the cold, hard gear ratios of our solar system and apply them to the timelines found in ancient texts? This paper argues that you don't find chaos. You find a meticulously designed clock. The math is right there for anyone to check. The conclusion? Well, that's up to you.